All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Super excited. It's going to be a great webinar with Katana and Intuit joining forces to talk around moving from accounting to advisory. We'll just give a few minutes here, or maybe a minute, to just let some people flow in. We got a really solid registration, so we'll give a few minutes here. And just some housekeeping, as we're going through the webinar, you can utilize the Q&A to put your questions. We've got our handy dandy partner manager and Drew will be monitoring the Q&A and making sure we're getting those questions answered. And we'll leave some time at the end, hopefully 10 to 15 minutes, to dig into some questions and ask some specific use case questions or answer some specific use case questions that you might have. So really excited about that. All right, got some people logging in here. We're 1 minute past. So let's get started here. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. And that should be coming through full screen on your end. Is that what you're seeing, Justin?
It is.
All right, great. Okay, well, everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have a more practical approach to today's webinar, where we're going to be not only talking about how to move from accounting to more of an advisory position with your clients, but also doing sort of an example call. What data points might you review with your inventory client that's selling in an e-commerce environment? So really impactful, something that you can take away from this call and hopefully roll into your practice in helping your clients better manage their profitability across their different sales channels. So thank you very much for joining us today. Again, it's brought to you by Katana and Intuit. We're joining forces here to help accountants move towards an advisory role with their clients and be more impactful. So Justin, I'm super excited to have you join me today. Loads of experience working with accountants and helping Intuit service the accountant partners that you guys work with. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Sean. My name is Justin Kevnick. I'm a group leader here with the Accountant Channel, and I do a lot of work with our strategic partnerships. And I've really had the honor of working and serving our accountants for the last 13 years. And now I have this distinct privilege of being with you all today. And I'm excited about that. Our mission is really to power prosperity around the world. We know that the very best way that we can accelerate that is through building meaningful relationships with our accountant partners. And our goal today is not going to be to sell you something. It's going to be to build that relationship even more and hopefully be a force for education and awareness around advisory. As Sean was talking about, we want to leave you with some practical concepts too that are going to help you serve and monetize your client advisory services at scale.
Awesome. Yeah, really excited, Justin, to really dig in today. And my name's Sean Coltis. Some of you may know me already. I'm the head of channel partnerships at Katana. Been in the manufacturing and inventory space for the past 15 years. Started out at a manufacturer and helped implement their inventory management system, and did implementations for about 7 years, and spent a lot of time working with accountants and bookkeepers. And interestingly enough, this was quite a while ago, I guess, prior to the major switch over to cloud-based technology. And often in that scenario, you had two environments. You had your on-premise environment where accounting and inventory were not connected, and the accountants liked it that way. But with a cloud-based environment, if you are able to connect those two channels together, those two different business operating tools, it allows you to add so much more advisory to that client because they get a holistic picture of what's going on within their business in real time. And I think that's super impactful as we see things are changing so rapidly in the business environment today. Katana's customer base saw a 230% increase in raw material costs for their food and beverage manufacturers. So you can just imagine how impactful that would be for a business if they didn't have really solid visibility in real time to that increase in raw material costs. But some of the things we're going to dive in today is what are some of the different approaches in the SMB market, sort of just going through an overall technology stack and talking through where Katana and Intuit with QuickBooks Online fit in. We'll transition into raising the floor on your accounting firm and how can we increase that overall reoccurring revenue with your clients to help increase the health of your business. And then we'll actually dive into advising for impact and take a look at an example demonstration around what are some of the key points of data that you might want to review with your client to help move away from just getting the books right into that position where you're in that advisory conversation and really impacting that business owner's decision. And then we'll move into how to ensure success with your clients. If we have enough time, I'm thinking of timing wise with the demo, we might just transition into the Q&A from there. All right, so inventory software approaches for small and medium-sized businesses. And we've got a couple ends of the spectrum here. So on the one side, you've got your all-in-one ERPs, such as SAP, Oracle, and there is certainly a place for these heavy-hitting ERP solutions in the enterprise space. And we've actually seen a significant increase of interest from businesses that are on NetSuite as they had a big COVID sale or something that was going on. And they were selling the solution for $10,000 a year. And people are now coming in and saying, well, I've got a new proposal that's $100,000 a year, and they're looking elsewhere. And one of the things that we often hear is they're only utilizing a very small percentage of that software due to the complexity of the solution and just not needing certain aspects of the software. They tend to not actually get the return on investment that they're expecting, not to mention needing a full-time staff member to actually keep that thing up and running. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got these legacy systems that are more in that on-premise environment and approach. And so there certainly is a time and place for these solutions. But when they are in that on-premise environment, one thing that could be a challenge is connecting it to that ecosystem in the cloud. And really where Katana focuses in that best of breed approach, really highlighting that ease of use as well as support. And one thing we hear consistently from the accounting firms that we work with, they are prioritizing support over almost all else because there's nothing worse than getting hung out to dry when you're trying to support your client. And that's something we really try and focus on in supporting our accounting firms, as well as that ease of use so that you can have this standardized tech stack that not only you can have your clients get up and running effectively, but you can also support those clients that are utilizing it. But with the technology perspective, Justin, what would Intuit and QuickBooks Online approach be, and how are you looking at the market today?
Yeah, so with QuickBooks on the technology side, our teams go to work developing technology, and they really have one very simple philosophy. It is begin with the customer problem. And so we take a lot of painstaking effort to get out, talk to customers, understand the marketplace, and more specifically, the challenges they're faced with every day. And so what we do is we get laser focused on how we develop technology in service to solving the biggest challenges. And we've identified the top 6. And so I'll just kind of rapid fire those right now because I think it's important that we all kind of ground in what it is that we're solving for. The first one is getting customers. So this is Intuit seeking to solve for top of funnel customer acquisition. This is a big focus for MailChimp and some other endeavors that we're on. So that's a big one. Getting paid. So the advanced money movement technology that serves both AR and AP is a real big focus for us. It is helping to revolutionize how people get paid and how people collect, and it's really making a big difference there. Getting access to capital. So QuickBooks is now helping to serve in the underwriting process and help place dollars where they are needed most to help people bridge gaps within their cash flow. Paying workers. single largest line item expense in any business. So how we help address that and reduce risk at the same time by streamlining the process to pay workers is a big focus. And then accessing advice, creating networks like the people here in this webinar today that will have the ability to serve the marketplace because they are going to now have access to our accountant network through the Pro Advisor network and other channels that are being developed. And then lastly, and kind of very basically, most importantly, is compliance. This is anything from accounting, tax to payroll. It's ensuring that our customers are entering into the marketplace and staying compliant with regulation. All of this is really wrapped around one common theme, and that is cash flow. With our platform, we're really seeking to improve cash flow, bottom line. And we really want to be the source of truth for small to mid-sized businesses and develop technology that is focused on those critical challenges. And one of the important pieces of developing technology that solves big problems is you can't be everything to everybody. And so we have to have partners with very tight integration capability, like Katana, for industry-specific scenarios. And that's going to be a big part of our focus today.
Yeah, absolutely. Cash flow is so important into any business. I had a conversation with Helena from Enterflow just earlier last week, and that was a big thing that she talked about when she said when she has this conversation with her clients, the number one thing that they're really focused on in a scaling e-commerce business is cash flow. And if they can manage that effectively, they're going to be a successful business. And so it really comes down to that cash flow piece. And when you think of an accounting firm and running your own practice, cash flow is also important. And that kind of leads us to the next conversation around raising the floor within your accounting firm via that advisory service. So Justin, maybe you could take us through what that means and how impactful that can be for an accounting practice.
Yeah, so what does that mean to raise the floor? Fundamentally, it means enhancing your baseline services and delivering meaningful insights to your clients. Bringing something of value, of substance that enhances top and bottom line results for your business or your client's business. And it's usually something beyond basic compliance. It's something that allows you to create value and in turn raise your baseline reoccurring revenue and drive growth. In other words, raise your floor, your baseline revenue. Our focus is solving those big challenges in the marketplace that I talked about a minute ago. A huge part of that is simplifying the work. The path to scaling in client advisory services is rooted in embracing technology and automation to unlock advisory. That's a philosophy that we really love to talk about. And so our vision is really to automate routine compliance tasks as much as possible, free you up to focus on those higher value advisory services. We have this vision that books are done, that it's just happening behind the scenes and you don't have to think about it. And that's where we're headed. Part of what's going to help us get there is AI and much of the advent of that integrating into our platform as well. Beyond that, the goal is to deliver these insights that are going to add value to your client experiences in a very streamlined and automated way. And so that's another piece of what we're going to be talking about today. What we know about advisory services is that, of customers we've surveyed, 41% of them would pay more for advisory services over just simple financial compliance. And we also know that 50%, unfortunately, 50% of businesses don't survive past 5 years. But those that are leveraging a standardized tech stack With QuickBooks, we can raise that number to 69%. And that is a real testament to the effort and muscle that the accounting industry is bringing to the marketplace every day in partnership with Intuit. And we are just thrilled to be on that journey with our partners. So I just want to say thank you for all the work that you guys put in every day for, this marketplace, our small business community. So
Yeah,
again,
it really, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, no worries. Yeah, it's just, at the end of the day, we're just seeking to be the source of truth for our clients' business and give them the tools and the industry specific integrations like Katana to better manage cash flow and thrive into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that, Justin. And when you talk about that community, it is phenomenal when you go, whether it's a Scaling New Heights that happened a couple of weeks ago or Get Connected in Toronto here at the Intuit event. You really see this really tight camaraderie among, the accountants and the bookkeepers. And it's a really fantastic community. And that's where we really see strong relationships and people that you can rely on to help support your practice and finding those specializations and those relationships that can help your practice grow. And in that growth and what we're seeing, I had a great conversation with Christine Hoke at Scaling New Heights. Raymond, she was a top 100 accountant, actually. She just got that award. And one of the things that she had talked about, it's so important to expand that advisory service offering for them. And one of the key things you had mentioned, Justin, was standardizing their tech stack. So they really want to make sure that they have these standardized technology stacks to help really increase the advisory service and getting away from that, just getting the books right, more into having the books right because they've got this standardized tech stack and moving into that sort of data-driven advice that they can help those owners with. So when you think of that impact, what are some of the areas or key areas that you're looking at firms being impacted by when they are able to really successfully add that advisory service?
Yeah, I think, this is really good topics. So thanks for bringing it, Sean. I think there's, most people in the space kind of have a good understanding of what advisory services are going to bring to the table. So they're going to help you increase your revenue streams. They're going to help you enhance your client retention. You're going to improve the service and the outcomes for your clients. And hopefully it helps you stand out in your marketplace and be, a little bit more competitive. But stating these objectives is one thing. Doing it in practice is another. We know that trying to manage everything that leads to these outcomes across multiple technology partners is really challenging. It can be challenging for businesses and advisors like those in here today. And that's why, touching on your comment around a standardized tech stack is such a big deal, right? 88% of top performing CAS practices support the idea of a limited standardized tech stack. And there's a lot of big reasons for it. Things like, easier staff training and onboarding. Think about it. I've got one tech stack. I create processes. Now, when I bring on new people, I'm better each and every time at plugging them into the expected workflow. Streamline client onboarding, same kind of thing. And then just standardizing the workflow in your practice is simplified. And all of that means efficiency and automation, which frees you up to deliver more. And that's really what it's about. So, QBO with Katana is just one example of how an integrated solution can, thrive for a firm and how a firm can utilize a standardized process for client engagements, specifically around advanced inventory management and manufacturing.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with it's kind of easy to understand, the benefits. Yeah, sure. Like, of course, we want to do that, but it's not as easy to implement. So maybe you could take us through sort of the different phases or paths that firms go through to kind of get, that CAS practice up and running and some of the things or questions that they might want to ask.
Yeah. I think, it's about awareness, right? I sometimes get challenged. Hey, Justin, make sure you're staying self-aware, and such an important thing to do. And I think it's really important to know kind of where you're at on the path to advisory. My team and I, we've sort of had the privilege of getting a bird's eye view of many firms who are on this path, and they're either trying to enhance an existing CAS practice or add advisory as a service offering. And the one big question that we oftentimes hear is, how do you design and deliver advisory services at scale? And if you're curious about that too, you might be wondering where to begin. Or maybe you're doing advisory work already, which is amazing and awesome. And you've already stepped into this opportunity. But it also might mean that you're handling a lot of custom spreadsheets. It may mean that that those are working really well for you, but in our experience, they may not be integrated to the degree that is required for you to scale in an efficient way. There might be a lot of double handling, taking data in and out of the system, moving them into spreadsheets. This leads to a lot of QA and error checking, which is really expensive. This applies to both you and your clients ultimately, and can result in a lot of manual work. It's just not scalable. And at the end of the day, all of this leads to potentially doing nothing or inaction. We see that a lot, unfortunately. And it may just mean you have this feeling of, I can't do it because I'm not staffed to scale the way that I need to deliver quality advisory work. So, what can we do about that? I think that's the real big question. And so if you could flip to the next slide. We often hear from firms that, they want to learn less about what they should do and more about how to do it. So one thing we've seen done that has been impactful for those that are on the journey to advisory is to begin focusing on 3 practical steps and then repeat them over and over, which helps them put things to action and drive with velocity. So these 3 steps are real practical, and they're really kind of framed up in a very simple way: who, what, and how. So who is who we're going to prioritize. Where do we start, and who do we start with? That's really a fundamental question. This may involve taking a close look at your current customers and determining, are these the type of customers that are going to be the client type that I have for my firm and the vision I have for my firm moving forward? So there may be this, gut check moment where we have to take make some hard decisions on whether or not this is the client that's going to go with me on the journey. And then once you've done that, I think there is which customers are most ideal. And for example, some of the best practices might look like, starting with the easiest, most obvious opportunities. Who are the people that need your help and will benefit from your services the most? You might look at clients that carry debt, or those that are often impacted by challenges to costs or commodity prices. You might review who you helped last year. Who were you doing planning and budgeting with last year? And maybe clients that are always asking for help with analysis at the very last minute. There's this massive opportunity out there to help businesses get ahead of things in a more proactive approach with these types of services. But I think the key here is to just learn who your ideal customer profile is and then seek to find more of them. Next, what are you going to provide? What are the actual outputs? What exactly is the service that you plan to offer? And what is the compelling value proposition attached to that for your clients? In other words, what insights or awarenesses can you derive that could help them? And again, with the standardized tech stack, you can begin to get these types of CAS outputs right out of the box. It gets you out of those spreadsheets, the process that goes along with it. And the best practice is just to really lean into the technology and let it automate as much as possible. And then lastly, how are we going to communicate it? You know, the benefits and the value that your services bring, how are you going to position that with your clients that you want to target? And then, you know, how are you going to understand how those services are being received? This can often be the hardest part for newer CAS practices as they're scaling. And so the good news is we're here today, and you know, we're going to talk about that as it applies to advanced inventory and manufacturing. And so a lot of good concepts still to come on how we focus on the who, what, and how. With that, I'll turn it back over to Sean.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Justin. I was just reading the chat, and it was interesting as you were kind of talking through that. Rachel, who we've worked with for a while, said, "Well, you just take on everything, and then you stress yourself sick trying to handle it all." And I think you brought up a really important point, and Rachel has even talked about this with me before as well. Is saying yes to everything actually hurts your business and hurts you from a stress perspective. And that's the key. I think finding that ideal client profile that you know the tech stack for, that you know you can have success with, and you know you have support from the technology around it can be super impactful to helping you scale that business with the right clientele. So I think that's just a really great comment from Rachel, and it was actually commented on. I think it was Juliana who said, "Yep, I do the exact same thing." So clearly, I think in general, bookkeepers and accountants, they really just want to make their clients happy, right? They're trying to provide that service of whatever it is that's going to make them happy, and at the expense sometimes of their own practice. And so today, what we want to kind of move into now is how can we utilize technology to move away from just taking on everything and wrapping that best of breed technology stack together to have really impactful conversations with your clients. So where can you make the most impact with your inventory clients? So let's take a look at that. And so I had a great conversation with 6 different accounting firms that have success in inventory advisory. And essentially, they broke it down like this. It wasn't exactly the same, but in general, they each have 2 reoccurring meetings on a monthly basis, and they charge a sort of a monthly fee. They're not hourly based. In general, each meeting is around 4 hours. And the things that they're going to discuss in that meeting are a lot around cash flow and what is profitable. So they're going to look specifically at sales channels, categories of products, and then individual products, and what is the profitability around those different areas, what's selling, what's not selling, how much cash do they have on hand, their AR and AP, and then specific inventory metrics and procurement terms. So how well are their vendors performing? Because that's clearly an important aspect for these e-commerce businesses to have success. And there was a question in there that I can answer as I transition now into the actual demonstration. So we're going to go through into the demonstration, and we're going to talk through the technology stack. We're going to look at analytically what you might want to have a conversation with regards to the owner, and then analyzing from a marketing perspective, taking that financial hat on, expanding out your service, because you have this ability to now say, hey, these channels are profitable, these channels are growing, and these ones are not, when you take all your costs in consideration. So let's go ahead here and take a look at what that could look like in a demo. So I'm going to go and pause this, exit, and we're going to go resume share. Wait.
Thanks for all the engagement in the chat too. Keep it coming.
This is always tricky. I think I'm getting there though. All right. All right, we're up and running. Okay, so you can see that on your end there, Justin. Just wanted to confirm the graphs are coming through.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Rachel, I think this would be applicable to you. I know you focus on inventory clients that are selling through e-commerce. You've got a lot of them, and so one of the things that I heard in speaking with a number of practices, specifically had a great conversation with Helena from EntreFlow, just a wonderful person, and she said the really important thing is that cash flow and is that profitability, and you have to look at it across all the different ways that you're whittling down your profitability. And so that's what we're seeing here. So you start off, when we look at all of your revenue, you're coming in at in this case, $3.8 million in this example. And you have a certain percentage that is discounted, and that's being pulled from your sales or your e-commerce channels, that data. And then you have some credits or returns, and again, that's pulled from your e-commerce solution. And then you have a big bucket here, which is your cost of goods sold. So that's going to include, your labor that's associated if you're a manufacturer, or your raw material and your landed costs, which is, when you look at the buckets of contribution with regards to your cost of selling, COGS is clearly the most impactful one. You then have your shipping costs, which are pulled from, say, like a ship station or a ship to or easy ship. You have your channel fees, which would be coming from, an Amazon, a Shopify, whatever channels you're selling through. And then you have your variable expenses, which are being pulled through your QBO. So this is a great way to have a meeting with an owner now where you're saying, hey, here's the health of your business over the past period or month, and we can see what buckets are contributing most to the overall profitability of their business. And I think this visualization would help an owner understand, wow, I was really worried about, for example, those variable expenses, but it's so minuscule that it really doesn't even warrant their attention. They should really be focused on that cost of goods sold and the processes that are happening within their business, or where they're sourcing their raw materials from, or their landed costs, because those things are making their way directly into that cost of goods sold. So those are example of analytical conversations you can have with an owner to really help impact their business decisions. Then we can look at the order channel. So you have your orders that are put in directly B2B into Katana. You've got your Shopify orders, your Amazon orders. You can see sort of the value, the total count of products coming through. What's the overall margin within those different channels? Again, identifying what channel do I really want to focus on or invest in, especially if you're testing out a new channel. As these e-commerce businesses are scaling rapidly, the owners are all of a sudden like, oh, I'm gonna try an Etsy store. I'm gonna go throw this thing on Walmart Marketplace. And it's great because they can scale and reach markets that they would never otherwise have been able to with technology. But with that expanse and that technology, John Bottom says it all the time, you really can create a complex business very quickly. And so by having this visibility in real time and having these conversations, that business owner that's reached new markets, created complexity, you now have the data to support decisions that they're making and where they should push forward and where they maybe need to pull back. So that's really impactful. And then you can drill into it by SKU and look at individual products that they're having success with. In this case, they must have been looking at what I have in my garage, a bunch of different lifting equipment, kettlebells, sandbags, those are really heavy items, that you use to get jacked. And that's what I have in my garage. They must have just been looking at things that I buy. All right. So that was a joke. I'm sure people were laughing. They're all on mute. Okay. So now when we look at this and you see the data points, there are some other things that we could look at. For example, your current inventory value, your profitability, your AP, your AR, and those are all in your monthly inventory data and your inventory and accounting information. But let's take a moment here, I'm just looking at the time, to double click on that cost of goods sold and why that's so important for a business owner to have good control over and how Katana can help with that. So I'm going to dive in here to Katana, and you can see here in Katana and answering that question that was in the Q&A around, you've got a point of sale customer. Does Katana handle point of sale? One of the ways that we handle point of sale is by, one of the most common is through an integration into Shopify point of sale. And so Katana can help manage the inventory at that brick and mortar location, identify what the overall cost is, how much you have, your reorder points and everything around that. Whereas the actual order getting into Katana would come via Shopify point of sale is the most common one, but there's a few other ones out there that we certainly can integrate with. So on this screen here, we're seeing our sales orders. So on this sales order, if we look at any one of these sales orders, you can see they've come in from different sales channels. So I have all my open orders listed out here. I have this stoplight functionality allowing me to see exactly what I need to action within that order. Do I have the finished goods, the raw material, and has a manufacturing order been put in place? If you're using manufacturing orders within the system, you don't have to. And then what channel it came through. You can see some of these orders actually came direct from Shopify. So I could actually click and drill into that Shopify order. So again, that's speaking to that connectivity between the best of breed technologies from your e-commerce to your inventory, all the way through, if we take a look over at the done screen here on the sales item, all the way through to your financials. So I can see all the different invoices I have created over in QuickBooks Online, and I can actually click through here and open that invoice up. And what that invoice is going to contain is that cost of goods sold. So we talked about that. How is that cost of goods sold being derived within Katana? So you can see how that's being set up and created if we take a look at this individual sales order. So let's click right in here. So your cost of goods sold is made up of, in Katana, typically a couple of things. One is your product costs, your raw material, or if you're just selling and buying it, your product costs, your landed costs, so any shipping costs associated to it, as well as often your manufacturing or your operational costs through production. And Katana has the ability to roll all those up across your different products. So if we were to look at a purchase order, for example, Katana can help you generate those purchase orders very easily within the solution. So if we go over to our stock screen, we can go and look at our materials, and we can see all the different materials that I have in the system. And it also identifies any items that I need to purchase. It's going to highlight those in red, meaning you're below your safety stock and what you currently have in stock, as well as taking into account your demand. So then by going in and clicking these items, so I'm going to go and buy some paint here, I can go and create the purchase order for this. So again, now what I'm kind of trying to show you here is creating efficiency between workflows. One of the most common things I see when I do on-site walkthroughs is businesses carrying way too much inventory. With Katana, we help tie together your demand, your safety stock to help you evaluate exactly what you need to purchase. We also can even forecast out what you plan to sell so that you can build your forecasted sales into how much inventory you're currently carrying. So maybe a Black Friday coming up, it's a big sale, big time of your business, or you have a seasonality within your business, that can be accounted for. So in this purchase order, I've got my paint supplier PO. I have my different paints that I've now added to my purchase order, the quantity I'm purchasing. And I can even now go ahead and add some additional costs. So this would be the landed cost that's going to now be associated to this item. So let's say I've got $100 of landed costs. It costs me to go and ship it to me, and that's going to be allocated to that individual line item cost when we create that and receive that into our inventory. So that's an example of how that cost of goods sold gets added into. The other way would be on the manufacturing order. So when we look at our manufacturing order within Katana, we're going to see all these different manufacturing orders within the system. And in that manufacturing order, which you can schedule, you can assign to employees on the shop floor, we're not only taking into consideration the cost of the product. So in this case, we're making some cheese and you need milk, lemon, and salt to make that cheese. You go through some operations through production, heat, strain, and press. And so the costs associated to those operations also get rolled into that cost of goods sold. So on the purchasing side, we're creating the PO, we're adding that cost, we're shooting it over to QuickBooks Online for your bill to get generated. We're then manufacturing the product, creating your finished good, and generating that accurate cost of goods sold so that when we go and sell that, we have the ability to either send the invoice over or just the cost of goods sold over to QuickBooks Online. So you're maintaining your inventory perpetually in the solution in QuickBooks Online, and Katana is carrying that really accurate cost of goods sold. So this is an example of how you're taking sort of that best of breed technology environment where you have your e-commerce solutions, you have your inventory solution, you have your financial solution, potentially shipping solutions. We're bringing those all together and providing you with a tool that can now allow you to have really impactful business conversations with your client base. And this is where you're taking that move from accounting to advisory by moving away from having this month-end process of spending hours getting their books accurate to having the books already accurate, now utilizing that to have a really excellent view of the health of a business, focusing on some really important key performance indicators for that business, and standardizing that focus across all of your clients that you've sort of hand selected as your ICP that you can have these impactful conversations with. And really that's how you now move from accounting to advisory. So we'll maybe just take a moment here. I'm just looking at the time. We do have enough time to go through how you can actually help your client succeed in their selection process. But before I click off of here, there might be some specific questions. So I'm gonna just go into the Q&A and see. So Sean, but yes, can absolutely do this. Oh, not to answer for Sean, but yes, can absolutely do this. Okay, so you can earn CPE according to Rachel. So Rachel, thank you for answering that question. I think were you answering that question? I don't know, Rachel. I am not aware that you can earn a CPE credit, at least from Katana. Rachel, maybe there's some other method that you can earn that CPE credit. Thank you for answering that question. Any other things in there? Rachel had just said, yes, the biggest mistake I always see is that SMBs often look at payouts only, and that is wrong. Okay, so, and I think you're speaking to landed costs, right? Businesses don't always take into consideration their landed costs or other fees that they're paying out. Maybe it's their shipping fees, their channel fees, and they're missing a key area with how you're actually calculating your profitability. And so this is what we're trying to show here, is a really accurate visualization of what's the most impactful areas within a business when it comes to the profitability of that organization and where the costs are coming from. All right, so I'm going to take a moment here. I'm just going to pause this for a second and jump back in. If there are any other questions around this, happy to dive into them. But we're going to talk through. I'll just pause this here, and we're going to do a new share. Share from current slide. Okay, and is that live on your end, Justin?
I'm still seeing the dashboard, if that was your intent.
All right, it wasn't. We'll do that and share. We'll try that one more time. Is that coming through? Resume share.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So we just kind of walk through this process of sort of tying together the different technologies for that analytical review. And you can see how standardizing the technology can be so impactful. I know, Justin, you brought that up a number of times, right? When you're thinking of raising the floor on your accounting practice, increasing that advisory service. If you don't have that standardized technology, it can be really hard for you. And we heard it from Rachel and some of the other individuals, how difficult this can be. And it seems like that's a really important piece for Intuit. Did you have any other comments around the importance of standardizing the tech stack, or just in general, what we just covered? Any other insights or things that practices might want to consider when they're taking a look at how to impactfully address expanding their firm to more of an advisory approach?
Yeah, I mean, based on what I just saw, I'm inspired, first of all, about the power of what you're showing, right? What does it require to get at that information without this integration? I think that's the question that everybody has to ask themselves as they look at this, because if you want to scale and you really want to do this and create value for your customers, it's going to have to be something where you're allowed the freedom to think about their business. And you're not spending all your time running and grabbing and, manipulating information. You're using the knowledge that you have, that you trained for many years to bring to this industry, instead of being this aggregator of data. And that's what is really valuable at the end of the day for our customers, is that you show up for them and you bring powerful insights that lead to results for their business. And if you're doing that, raising the floor is going to be a lot easier than you might think, because at the end of the day, that's what people are willing to pay for. 41%, we saw the stat, will pay more for that service, we know this already, than they will for simple compliance. So leaning into the technology to produce those insights in an automated way, giving you the freedom to be the specialist and the advisor, the trusted advisor, the credible information specialist that has a handle on the direction for the practice. That's the key. So that's what I found inspiring.
Yeah, I love that, Justin. I think you nailed it in that data. You used a great word there. So you're pulling together all the data, and that's kind of the role. But it can be so much more if the data is already together, and you can use that experience and expertise to really move to that advisory approach. So absolutely love that to help ensure your client success. And I think you don't need to be an expert, right? What I think when we look at it, often we hear people think, well, I need to know everything about that tool, exactly how it works, in order for me to say, yeah, you should look at this as a client. But that's not the case, right? You don't necessarily have to know everything. That's what, at least at Katana, we focus on, being that manufacturing and inventory expert from a support perspective, as well as helping you access partners in the industry. You know, there's Dan DeLong, who has an excellent uh, Power Hour that's focusing on the QuickBooks ecosystem and tools around it. And there's the Appy Hour, which is another great educational resource to help identify tools that can be impactful for your practice that your clients can utilize. And then there's partners of ours that are willing to take on that inventory focus for you so that you can just have that financial conversation. So you're sort of working towards getting that sort of end in mind approach, but utilizing resources within the market to help your client get to that area or that phase in their business where you can actually have that impactful conversation because the data is automated and it's accurate, and you can start to really dig into it with them. So when we look at how to ensure your client's success, a couple of things, like when you're thinking of an inventory client, that you can do is you can identify a client that is having inventory challenges. You can utilize an expert in the industry, which could be Katana, but it could be some other expert. Maybe they're a consultant. You know, we work with ABX. It's a great consulting firm that works with Katana, but other inventory solutions as well. So they're inventory agnostic when it comes to the solution, and they can make sure that you're selecting the right one for your client. You can then dive into that product demonstration. They should offer a detailed, customizable product demonstration for your client or to you, and you can help facilitate that with the client. And then there should be an implementation and guided onboarding process that is set up for that client. Again, whether it's directly from that provider or you're providing it or another partner, that's something you want to definitely take into consideration as you guide that client from, their current state of maybe an on-premise solution, heavily utilizing Excel to manage their inventory, to an automated cloud-based tech stack in Katana with QuickBooks Online. This is sort of the phased approach that you might want to look at with your client to ensure their success. So something to take into consideration. There are some questions and things in the chat. We've just got a few minutes left here, so I'll go ahead and dig into those. And definitely feel free to ask some questions. So not to answer for Sean, but yes, so those were the two questions. So those are, there were some that were answered in here. So Drew was answering away. I'll just see if there's anything that, one was, I have a client in China who has issues accessing some tech due to their non-static IP address. Would they be able to fully access Katana and use all its features? We think so. The nice thing about Katana, as a partner with Katana, being an accountant, we could actually get them a free trial, test it out, and then could they actually get into the full solution? Being in China would be a great question. So from Katana's perspective, I'm fairly certain that they would be able to utilize the solution. I don't know from Intuit or QuickBooks Online if there are some specific jurisdictional aspects that you can't utilize it. I know there are regional aspects to QBO. This is super important. Please reach out. Okay, so that was just answering Drew's question. Yeah, for sure. We can get back to you on that specifically, but I think starting a free trial and testing it out is the best way to know for sure. I do know we have clients in China, so that might be enough. How does implementation work? How long and how involved is the process? Great question, Juliana. So the implementation of Katana on average takes 28 days. And so that really is dependent though on the client and the resources that they have available. So if they aren't able to focus on the project, that's something that you might want to take into consideration. And these are actually some questions that you might want to ask with regards to keys to success. So if they don't have a dedicated staff member, that's where I certainly think you're going to want to have a partner involved to help implement the solution, because they're not going to have that resource focused on setting things up. We do offer guided onboarding services at Katana to help get them up and running. We have partners that can do data conversions for them with QuickBooks Online. If they're moving from desktop to QuickBooks Online, that is a service that's often available. So that's something that you could look at. But overall, it's usually about 4 to 5 weeks, and we offer a dedicated onboarding individual to your client to get them up and running, as well as to any of our accounting partners. We will have a partner manager working directly with you to ensure that if you do have a question or you need some additional help, we'll jump on a call and ensure that you are well supported. So that's it for questions. Check out the chat. Workshop Wednesdays, School of Bookkeeping. Okay, so Rachel confirmed it's not for CPE, so thank you, Rachel. All right, great. So I think that's it for questions. I really appreciate the back and forth and people attending the conversation today. If you are looking for more information, please feel free to contact us. We can always set up a more detailed demonstration of the solution. We just really touched the surface today, but I think it was an excellent conversation. Justin, thank you so much. Any final words to our audience?
Just, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your passion for this industry and for your business. We want to be a resource. We want to be an advocate for advisory and providing knowledge. So as Sean mentioned, please reach out. We'd be happy to help in any way we can.
Thank you so much, Justin. And thank you everyone for attending. Special shout out to Rachel. She's always so helpful and engaged. So thank you so much. And if there are any follow-up questions, you can always ping me. I'm sean.coltis@katanamrp.com. And if you already have a partner manager, definitely reach out to Jason, Justin, or Drew. Thank you so much. And again, thank you, Justin. Really appreciate everyone's time. Have a great and wonderful day.